My name is Margaret Holloway. I am 62 years old, and if there's one thing that has defined my existence so far, it's the love of craftsmanship. Timber and Stone wasn't just a store, it was my second home, my masterpiece. I built it with my own hands literally 37 years ago, at a time when few women were seen with a hammer in hand and sawdust on their clothes. I remember the first day as if it were yesterday, the small, worn building on the corner of Main Street, where everyone thought I would fail before I even began. But piece by piece, I built a space that blended tradition and soul. Every piece of furniture that came out of there had a story. A crib that rocked a family's first child. A rocking chair that carried grandparents through lazy afternoons. A dining table that witnessed generations of memories. I took pride not just in selling furniture, I sold permanence in a world that was growing more rushed by the day. Madison, my only daughter, grew up on those creaky wooden floors. As a little girl, she would run between the workbenches, her golden braids flying through the air amid the wood shavings. I used to dream that one day she would take it all over, that her love for our family's roots would be as strong as mine. And she said it would be. She always said it. "When I grow up, timber and stone will be mine, Mommy," she would shout, her eyes sparkling, while sawing pieces of wood with toy tools. As time went by, life took her far away, college, modern jobs, but she always promised she would come back. And when, on my 62nd birthday, she hugged me tight and said she was ready to carry on the store, I felt that I could finally rest a little. That all the effort, all the struggle, all the resistance had been worth it. I prepared everything as if I were handing down a sacred inheritance. I left instructions, supplier contacts, finishing secrets my father had taught me that I had never shared with anyone else. I closed the store for 3 whole days just to make the official handover. I handed over the keys with a trembling smile and a lump in my throat as family members and longtime customers applauded us. There was no doubt in my heart. I was leaving timber and stone in the right hands. Or so I thought. What I didn't know was that, to Madison, my walls soaked with history and sweat were nothing more than wasted potential. And that in just a few days, everything I had built with love and sacrifice would be replaced by something I could never have imagined, not even in my worst nightmares. I didn't need much time to realize something was wrong. The week after the handover ceremony, I decided to stop by the store unannounced. Not to interfere, of course. Just to see timber and stone alive under my daughter's command. I woke up early, as I had done for almost 4 decades, and walked slowly down Main Street, savoring the crisp morning breeze, letting the memories warm my chest. But when I turned the corner, I stopped as if I had hit an invisible wall. Timber and stone was gone. In its place, under a new shiny sign, it read, "Wild Bloom, Lifestyle and Vibes." My heart skipped a beat. The rustic wooden facade, which my late father and I had sanded and varnished together late into the night, had been covered with bright white paint and ridiculous golden lettering. The storefront no longer displayed rocking chairs, solid tables, or hand-carved cabinets. Now, sheer curtains, fake ferns, and mannequins dressed in flowing linen clothes and straw hats hung in the window. The smell of wood and varnish, the very soul of the place, had been replaced by the sickly scent of artificial scented candles. I stood there, like a stranger in front of my own buried history. When I finally managed to move my legs, I walked in. The loud, modern music vibrated in my ears, an aggressive contrast to the old doorbell, which Madison had clearly forgotten to remove, a small detail of timber and stone that still hung on, like a timid lament. Madison was behind the new counter, frantically typing something on her phone, with a smile on her face that I had never seen when she worked with me. She wore a designer dress, her hair perfectly styled in artificial waves. She looked more like a digital influencer than a store owner. When she saw me, her smile faltered slightly. "Hi, Mom," she said, unenthusiastically, as if my presence was an inconvenient reminder of something she'd rather forget. What is this place?" My voice cracked. She sighed and put down her phone. "I needed to update the concept, Mom. No one wants heavy, old-fashioned furniture anymore. People are looking for experiences now. They want lifestyle, They want positive vibes. Update the concept. I repeated, barely believing what I was hearing. It's what's trending. I hired a marketing consultant, and he said that to survive, we had to completely reinvent ourselves. Timber and stone was suffocating. Suffocating. The word fell over me like a cold rain. The furniture I had crafted by hand, the store I had kept alive through the worst recessions, the customers who returned generation after generation to her, all of that was a burden, a symbol of shame. I looked around. The old counter my father had carved was gone. The wall where I proudly displayed photos of happy families with their furniture was now covered with empty minimalist frames. It was as if I had never existed. I tried to hold my composure. "Did you at least keep anything?" I asked, clinging to a thin thread of hope. She shrugged. "I sold everything. The old furniture was just taking up space. I used the money to renovate and buy new stock. You'd understand if you saw the numbers. 200% growth in online visits. The old furniture. They weren't just pieces of furniture. They were years of my life, pieces of myself. And she had thrown them away like old junk. The ground seemed to give way under my feet. "You could have consulted me," I managed to say, fighting the knot in my throat. She smiled, like someone explaining something obvious to a slow child. "Mom, you handed me the store. You said you trusted me. I'm just doing what's best. For me. For the brand." That word, brand, made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. I knew deep down that timber and stone wasn't just a business. It was a legacy. And my daughter, my own flesh and blood, had traded it all for likes, for empty aesthetics, for some packaged dream someone had sold her. Unable to find more words, I left the store before my pain turned into humiliation. I walked down the sidewalk under the gray sky as the memories came in waves. Me and Madison painting the first counter, teaching her to recognize the smell of walnut wood. The nights I spent there, working until my hands bled, just to pay the bills and send her to the college she had dreamed of. I hadn't cried like that since my father died. But there, on that cold spring morning, walking alone through a town that once revered me as a symbol of perseverance, I cried. I cried for the loss of timber and stone. I cried for the loss of my daughter. I cried for the loss of myself. And that was when the idea was born. At first, it was just a faint spark. A small voice deep in my chest, timid, almost imperceptible. "You are still alive." Timber and stone may have been buried, but Margaret Holloway was still standing. And if Madison thought she could erase my story with white paint and linen mannequins, well, she was about to learn that the deepest roots are also the hardest to uproot. I would not be forgotten so easily. I would do something. Something that would make the whole town remember who built that corner of Main Street. Something that would make my name echo for generations. I stayed awake that whole night. The silence of the house seemed to mock me, echoing the absence of the store, the absence of purpose, the absence of who I used to be. But as the darkness crept through the windows, the spark that had been born that morning began to expand within me, turning sadness into fury, and fury into a strange and powerful sense of freedom. I didn't need anyone's permission to rewrite my story. At 3 a.m, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank sheet of paper. I grabbed an old pen, my father's gift to me on the day I opened Timber and Stone, and started writing. Ideas, names, sketches, buried dreams. Everything I had once thought of doing but postponed to keep the store alive for Madison. Now it would be different. By sunrise, I already knew what I would do. I would open my own shop again. Bigger, stronger, more mine than ever before. And this time, without carrying the burden of pleasing anyone. Name? It would no longer be Timber and Stone. That story had been murdered. I would choose something that represented who I was now. Someone who had withstood demolition. Someone who had bloomed from her own wreckage. I smiled to myself as I wrote in bold, steady letters. Iron roots. Roots of iron. Unbreakable. The first challenge was the space. Madison had taken over our old location, but I knew every corner of that town. Every street. Every window that belonged to someone who had once shopped with me. That same morning, I put on my straw hat, slipped on my boots, and went for a walk down Main Street. And that's when I saw it. An old grain warehouse, abandoned on the outskirts of town, half forgotten by time. The structure was rugged, with worn bricks and broken windows, but in its shape, I saw potential. I saw a new home. The rent was low. The owner, an old customer of mine named Mr. Pritchard, nearly cried when he saw I was interested. "Margaret, if anyone can breathe life into this place, it's you," he said, gripping my hand so tightly I thought my bones would crack. The second battle was money. I had some savings, of course, but not enough for the renovation I had in mind. That's when I realized I didn't need luxury. I needed authenticity. And no one knew how to make furniture with their own hands better than I did. I went back home and got to work. I used discarded wood, construction leftovers, forgotten pieces from old projects. With hammer, nails, glue, and love, I built the first pieces for iron roots. Every scratch, every imperfection, every mark on the boards told a story. Stories of resilience. Stories of Margaret Holloway. I spent weeks working like a woman possessed. By day, I cleaned the warehouse, sanded the walls, painted. At night, I built furniture, sewed cushions, made lamps from dry branches and old wires. My knees ached. My back throbbed. My fingers were constantly cut or full of splinters. But never had I felt so alive. And the town, oh, the town began to notice. People who had known me since I was a girl stopped by, curious, asking what I was up to in that old warehouse. I just smiled, with a sparkle in my eye I hadn't worn in years. "Come and see," I'd say. "Soon you'll understand." The third storm came with Madison. Of course she found out. The day I hung, with my own calloused hands, the iron roots sign above the freshly restored door, she showed up. She drove her shiny SUV to the warehouse, stepped out in high heels, with expensive sunglasses and a smile full of venom. "So this is it, Mom," she said, crossing her arms. "You're opening a junk shop?" Behind her, the marketing consultant, a young man who looked straight out of a cologne ad, watched with disdain. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the facade I had rebuilt with sweat and tears. I saw beauty in the imperfection. I saw strength where they saw weakness. "This," I said calmly, "is what I built with my own hands, without having to sell my soul to seem modern." She laughed, a dry laugh from someone who thought the world only belonged to the young and trendy. "You'll never attract customers like this," she scoffed. "People want Instagram, they want trends." I smiled. "Maybe. But there are also those who want soul." She shook her head, as if I were a stubborn relic, and walked away. Without realizing that, in that arrogant exit, she had given me even more fuel to succeed. And then came the fourth stage. Opening day. I didn't know what to expect. I placed dried flowers in the windows, lit real candles, not the mass-produced ones that smell like plastic, and left the door open. I didn't run marketing campaigns. I didn't post dance videos on TikTok. I didn't pay influencers to smile holding clay mugs. I simply trusted. And in the early afternoon, just as I began to wonder if maybe I had been foolish, the first customer walked in. Then another. And another. And another. Some were old timber and stone clients, women who remembered the solid walnut furniture and the smell of warm varnish. Others were young, tired of superficial aesthetics, craving something truly authentic. Entire families came in, eyes shining, commenting on how the shop felt like a warm hug in a world of plastic. By the end of the week, Iron Roots was already the talk of the town. People came from nearby cities to see the shop reborn by the woman who refused to be erased. On Main Street, everyone was talking about Margaret Holloway and her legendary comeback. Meanwhile, Madison's wild bloom, with its expensive curtains and mass-produced clothes, began to wither. The new generation wanted more than empty vibes. They wanted roots. They wanted history. They wanted soul. And I finally knew I had done the right thing. I hadn't just rebuilt a store. I had rebuilt myself. The news spread faster than I could have imagined. In less than 2 months, Iron Roots wasn't just a store, it was a symbol. A living story passed from mouth to mouth, echoing through the town hall corridors, the benches in the square, the cafes where old men with white beards reminisced about the good old days. Margaret Holloway, 63 years old, brought down by her own daughter, risen again by her own hands. The name echoed on every corner, like a modern legend. Meanwhile, across town, wild bloom had started to show cracks. The windows flaunted imported clothes, artificial perfumes, and furniture that looked like it came from soulless factories. Sales were dropping. Madison, so used to automatic applause, didn't know how to handle the hollow echo of a store that, though pretty, was dead inside. She tried promotions, discounts, cocktail nights. But the people had already chosen. They wanted roots, not plastic flowers. And then came the day that would change everything. Founders' Day. Every year, our little town of Ashford celebrated its founding with a community fair. It was tradition. Stalls, live music, prizes for local entrepreneurs. And that year, ironically, Madison had been invited to organize the event. I heard it from the neighbors. "Margaret, are you going?" they asked, a bit hesitant, aware of the tension between us. I'd smile and say, "Of course I am. It's everyone's town." Inside, something pulsed within me, a warm, living anxiety. I could feel something big was about to happen. On the day of the event, I put on my best raw linen dress, handmade, of course, tied my hair in a loose bun, and headed to the town square. Madison was there. Beautiful, yes. Elegant. In her high heels and window-dressing smile. Beside her, a huge banner with golden letters waved in the wind. Wild Bloom, official sponsor of the new Ashford. Her eyes found me instantly in the crowd. And I saw it. For the first time in a long time, I saw the insecurity behind the flawless makeup. She knew. She knew that, despite the golden banner, despite the expensive giveaways, she wasn't the one the people wanted to applaud. At 2 p.m., the awards ceremony began. A small wooden stage had been set up. The mayor, a stocky man with graying hair, stepped up to the microphone, smiling at the crowd. "This year," he announced, "we decided to create a new award. Something special. A recognition for the person who truly embodies the spirit of Ashford, resilience, hard work, and soul." Madison's eyes lit up. I saw her straighten her posture, as if bracing for flowers and camera flashes. The mayor held up an envelope. "We asked the citizens themselves to vote, and the decision was unanimous." He paused. "With great pride, I present the Iron Roots Award to Margaret Holloway." The square erupted. People clapped so loudly it echoed against the storefronts. Whistles, cheers, tears. Madison froze. So did I. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But then dozens of smiling faces turned toward me, waving, calling me to the stage. My knees buckled. My hands trembled. Someone, maybe sweet old June from the market, gently nudged me forward. "Go on, Margaret," she whispered. "This is your moment." I climbed the wooden steps almost in a trance. The mayor handed me a trophy, raw, heavy, unpolished metal. It wasn't made to decorate. It was made to endure. I took the microphone, not knowing what to say. I've never been one for speeches. But as I looked at those people, those faces that had grown up with me, aged with me, believed in me, the words simply came. "I thought I had lost everything." I began, my voice trembling. "I thought I was too old, too tired, too forgotten." The crowd fell silent, hanging on every word. But then I realized the roots we plant, even when we can't see them grow, remain strong beneath the soil, waiting for the right moment to break through. I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. Today, I don't receive this award just for me. I receive it for everyone who's ever been cast aside. For everyone who's been told they're too old, too weak, too out of touch. And who, in spite of it all, still stood tall. Applause. Tears. I saw grown men wiping their eyes with the backs of their hands. I saw mothers hugging their children. And I saw Madison. in the back, alone, eyes lost. For a moment, our eyes met. And for the first time, she didn't look like a powerful woman. She looked just like my daughter, my little Madison, lost in the world she had built for herself. That night, Ashford didn't sleep early. The streets filled with music, dancing, the smell of churros and popcorn. And at the heart of it all, Iron Roots welcomed a steady stream of curious, emotional visitors. Some wanted furniture. Others just wanted to touch the wood, to feel the living soul that inhabited that place. And me? I sat behind the counter, hot tea in my hands, warmth in my chest. I had lost a store. I had lost a daughter, or at least the version of her I thought I knew. But I had gained something far greater: respect,
Dignity.
rebirth. And somehow I knew Madison would find her way too, someday. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but strong roots take time to grow. And I was living proof that even after the worst storms, we can still bloom. Forever.